ever get that, like, feeling deep down, that knot in your stomach when you're about to, really go for it, take a risk?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that feeling, that's fear. And that's what we're diving into today.
I like it.
Yeah. The why behind fear.
Yeah.
And we're using the Fearless Growth episode, The Root of Fear, to help us out, kind of guide our deep dive today.
Right. So it's funny. I think most people think of fear as a bad thing, something to avoid, right?
Right, of course, yeah.
But what if I told you that fear is actually, like, hardwired into us? Like, it's there for a reason.
Okay, you've got my attention. I'm listening. Tell me more.
All right. So imagine, like, picture our ancestors thousands of years ago coming face to face with a saber-toothed tiger.
Yeah, no thanks. But I see where you're going with this survival instincts.
Exactly. That feeling of fear, that was like their superpower, their secret weapon to staying alive, Yeah. It triggered that, fight, flight, freeze response.
Yeah, right.
Which basically means like their body was flooded with adrenaline.
Oh, wow.
Getting them ready to either fight that threat, run away as fast as possible, or like in some cases just freeze completely still and hope the danger didn't see them.
So wait, are you saying that my heart pounding before a big presentation at work
Yes.
is basically the same thing as my ancestors facing down a saber-toothed tiger?
Same system. Your brain hasn't quite caught up to the fact that the stakes aren't usually life or death anymore.
Right.
Think about it. How do you physically feel when anxiety hits?
Oh my gosh, my heart races, my palms get sweaty sometimes. Like my whole body tenses up like I'm about to jump out of my skin.
There it is. That's that fight or flight response kicking in and recognizing those physical sensations. That's actually a really powerful step in understanding how fear shows up in our lives.
Interesting. Okay, so our bodies are like still programmed for a world with saber-toothed tigers, even though, most of us only see them in zoos these days.
Right.
What kind of things are triggering those fear responses in us in the 21st century?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
The Fearless Growth episode actually breaks it down into 3 major fears that tend to plague us today. Fear of failure, fear of the unknown, and fear of change.
Any of those ring a bell for you?
Right.
All of the above, to be honest. But I've had to pick one. I think the one that pops up most often for me would be that fear of failure, for sure.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's incredibly common. Yeah. And, there's a reason for that. As humans, we're like wired for connection, for belonging.
Yeah.
And back in the day, being ostracized from your tribe, that was like,
oh, wow, yeah.
It was life or death.
Right. So we're afraid of failing because deep down we're afraid of being rejected.
Yeah, it's all connected.
Wow.
Our brains often struggle to separate a specific event from our overall sense of self-worth.
Right.
So that big presentation at work, it's not just about the presentation, right? It's about you. Or value, your intelligence, your competence.
Wow. No wonder we get so stressed.
Right.
And I'm guessing that can lead to some pretty, unproductive behaviors, right?
Exactly.
Right.
That fear of not measuring up, it can actually become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Oh, wow.
We procrastinate, we avoid taking risks. We might even sabotage ourselves.
Yeah.
All to avoid that potential pain of failure.
It sounds like Fearless Growth is onto something with this whole name the fear idea.
Yeah.
Because if we can recognize that it's fear driving those behaviors, maybe we can start to make different choices.
Totally. Awareness is key.
Right.
Naming the fear is that first step.
Okay.
But Fearless Growth had some really, really interesting advice on how to actually shift our relationship with fear.
Okay.
And it all starts with curiosity.
I'm intrigued. How do we go from feeling afraid to feeling curious, especially when our instincts are telling us to run in the opposite direction? Shifting from fear to curiosity. Honestly, that almost sounds harder than facing the fear itself.
Right.
It's
like how you even do that.
Yeah.
Well, it's all about changing the story, reframing. Because see, fear, that wants to keep you safe.
Right.
But curiosity, that pushes you forward.
Okay, so how do we actually flip that switch though? When my heart's racing and all I want to do is hide under my desk.
Let's go back to that fear of failure you mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
So instead of focusing on what if I totally bomb this presentation and everyone thinks I'm incompetent?
Yeah.
What if we get curious about the learning potential there?
So instead of what if I fail, it's what if I totally rock this?
Could be. Or even what's one new skill I can really master while I'm preparing? How can I connect with the audience, on a deeper level?
Yeah.
Suddenly, it's not about self-protection. It's about, potential growth.
That is such a powerful shift.
Right.
And it makes sense, because if you're curious, you're way more open to trying new things, even if you might mess up along the way.
Exactly. And the more we practice that shift, even with small stuff, the less power that fear has over us.
Right.
And hey, remember that fear of the unknown we talked about?
Yeah.
Curiosity is the antidote to that too.
Okay.
So instead of being paralyzed by uncertainty, you start asking questions, exploring possibilities.
Instead of freaking out about a job interview, I could get curious about the company, the challenges they're facing, how my skills can be a good fit.
Now you're getting it. And that change in mindset, that can be incredibly empowering.
Fearless growth. Also mentioned using breathing techniques to help manage fear.
Yeah.
I know when I'm stressed, my breathing is the first thing to go.
It all comes back to that mind-body connection.
Yeah.
We'll save the breathing exercises for another time, but they're a great example of how calming your body can actually help calm your mind.
It makes total sense. So as we wrap up our deep dive on fear today, what's the one thing you really want our listeners to walk away with?
Well, there's this Mark Twain quote from Fearless Growth that really stuck with me. Do the thing you fear most, and the death of fear is certain. And it doesn't have to be something huge. What's one small fear you could confront today?
Ooh.
What would it feel like to take that step?
I love that. It reminds me that even a tiny step outside of our comfort zone can make a big difference in the long run.
Exactly. It's about building that courage muscle, one small step at a time.
Love it. That's it for our deep dive on fear this week. But the conversation, that isn't over. What resonated with you today? What's one small step you're going to take? Let us know. We are all in this together.